Hi, my name is Mike Bober. I'm the president and CEO of PIJAC, the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council. I want to start off by thanking the good folks here at APPA and PIDA for giving us the opportunity to talk to you and tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. Since 1971, PIJAC has been the leading voice for the responsible pet care community on legislative and regulatory issues that address pet ownership, companion animal health and well-being, invasive species issues, and zoonotic disease prevention. We are your eyes, ears, and voice in Washington, and we are here to help. We represent the experience and expertise of the responsible pet care community to legislative, regulatory, and governing bodies. Our goal is to promote animal well-being and responsible pet ownership, to foster environmental stewardship, and to ensure the availability of healthy pets. We are the government affairs department for the pet care community. And in that capacity, we work with APPA, PIDA, WPA, and all of the other associations that take on a much larger role for you and your organization. We act as their sort of front line, and we make sure that we work with you to get your voices represented to lawmakers so that when they're considering positive legislation, you're able to weigh in. When they're considering negative or misguided legislation, you've got the opportunity to make your voice heard and hopefully have an opportunity to get some changes made. Our members represent the depth and breadth of the entire responsible pet care community. We are a 501c6 membership organization, which means that individuals and organizations are able to join us on an annual basis as contributing members. Our largest contributors are the American Pet Products Association, the Pet Industry Distributors Association, and the World Pet Association, who help to underwrite our efforts through resources derived from shows like the Global Pet Expo and Super Zoo. But we also represent individuals and companies from all sectors of the companion animal world, representing those with interests in dogs, cats, birds, fish, reptiles and amphibians and small mammals, as well as the entire breadth of the supply chain, from retailers and companion animal suppliers to food and product manufacturers, wholesale distributors, manufacturers' representatives, service providers, and other trade associations. In Washington and across the country, we engage every year on more than 1,500 pieces of legislation, regulations, and federal actions. What this means is that it's our job to keep an eye on issues that are percolating at the state level, at the federal level, at the international level, and occasionally at the local level as well, when we're able to become aware of these things with enough time to get involved. We work with lawmakers and their staffs to educate them both before and during the legislative process so that they can use our expertise and experience and that of you, the pet care community, to inform the legislative efforts that they undertake to ensure the health and well-being of pets, pet owners, and all of us who serve them. Now, PIJAC's work to protect and advance the responsible pet care community and to preserve pet ownership supports the economic strength of pet businesses like yours, who collectively generate over $221 billion in direct, indirect, and induced economic impact annually, supporting more than 1.3 million American jobs and making sure that more than $60 billion in salaries, wages, and benefits are paid out and benefit people across the country. This is a huge economic impact. The pet industry is larger than so many other organizations and entities out there, and it's important that we tell that story everywhere we can. PIJAC's work covers three major areas: animal well-being and care, which allows us to work on things like best management practices for breeders and distributors of companion animals, as well as pet stores and other activities. It allows us to work with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on zoonotic disease issues when there are issues of transmission or outbreaks. We want to be the frontline liaison for the industry to get the word out. And it also allows us to work with local and state and federal the legislative entities, lawmaking bodies, to help them do what's best for the health and well-being of the animals that form the backbone of our pet care community. That involves us working with federal agencies like the United States Department of Agriculture, Fish and Wildlife Service, and others to make sure that animals are being bred and cared for responsibly as they come into the world. It allows us to work with regulating entities like state departments of agriculture and state corporation commissions, working on regulating pet stores to make sure that they're brought into people's homes responsibly. And it allows us to work to make sure that once pets are in people's homes, they have the resources and products that they need to care for those animals throughout their natural lives. We also work on responsible pet ownership issues, which flow from that. Things like the ability to recognize important signs and signals that are out there when you've got an animal in your home, to make sure that you're treating them in a way that gives them the best possible care. It also goes through the education process on the front end so that people are making choices that represent the best fit for their personal circumstances. That is the single greatest predictor of successful, lifelong animal relationships, is making sure that people find the right pet at the right time for their family and their needs. And unfortunately, when situations arise when people are no longer able to care for their pets, we want to make sure that we've educated them to make responsible decisions about how they would go about giving up those animals. We don't want to see any situations where animals are introduced into the wild that could represent invasive species problems. And we certainly don't want to see people giving animals away in ways that jeopardize their health and well-being either. So that education is a key component of everything we do at PIJAC. And then the third element is that environmental stewardship, which flows from responsible pet ownership. We work with the Fish and Wildlife Service and NOAA and several other federal entities on a national program called Habitatitude. This is an educational program that tries to teach responsible pet ownership and responsible relinquishment. We also work with the Centers for Disease Control on animal care efforts and education on those zoonotic disease prevention efforts. That's also factor into environmental stewardship, because we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to espouse a One Health mindset that makes sure that the pet care community works as a partner with animal health, human health, and environmental health authorities to make sure that animals are an important part of that process. And then finally, we put resources out to make sure that people are handling their animals properly. Again, working with our federal partners on posters and other education campaigns like the Healthy Herp Handling Program. But our impact goes deeper than that, and it actually has an opportunity to really shine in more urgent and acute crises. In the recent coronavirus pandemic that we're thankfully just now starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, PIJAC worked with our association partners to immediately respond to the threats posed to pet businesses and pet ownership by COVID-19. We worked to lead the effort that successfully ensured that pet businesses were designated as essential, that they were allowed to remain open even when closure and quarantine orders went into effect, and to make sure that lawmakers and staff understood that pet care and pet services were essential businesses, as important to animal health and well-being as grocery stores and things like that were for human health. And as we all know now, looking back at the past years worth of time spent, the human-animal bond and the health benefits that it conveys were absolutely essential to help people who were going through isolation, loneliness, depression. It helped in a very palpable way, and our work to make sure that animal care remained viable for all of those people was an essential element of delivering that bond to people across the country. We continue to work with those partners on programs that communicate the success of the pet care community in implementing and modeling responsible behaviors for other stores that may have reopened after a period of closure, showing how pet stores had been able to successfully do that throughout the process. And we're also continuing to work as people start to move from the closures and work from home situations that they've enjoyed or gotten through for the past year, to make sure that as they transition into a more traditional full-time work environment, that there are resources available to them as they look to think about their animals' health and well-being, and to make sure that those pandemic puppies and other animals that have been brought into homes and helped clear shelters and rescues across the country are continued to be cared for and can become lifelong and productive members of people's families, as opposed to creating a situation where somebody may feel like they need to give an animal up. Our impact on a national level and on an annual basis is most seen and most felt through our annual Pet Care Community DC fly-in. Now, this is done in the fall every year in conjunction with HABRI, the Human Animal Bond Research Institute's Pet Night and Pet Week on Capitol Hill. We work with our partners at HABRI and at the Pet Food Institute to make sure that when we bring people to Washington, or if, as we did last year and this year, we do it virtually, they have the ability to tell their story and to represent the responsible pet care community to their elected officials, so that we can present the best possible version of what it means to be a part of the pet care community, and to work on important issues like pets in the classroom, care and support, funding for women's shelters for people escaping domestic violence situations, and animals for wounded service members that can take on a very important role in maintaining their health and well-being. Our impact is seen by our supporters across the country, and hopefully if you get a chance to take a look at our slide deck, you'll see some of the positive things that people have to say about what PIJAC has done for them. But how do we help all of you, whether you're a PIJAC member or not? Well, we're your legislative and regulatory watchdog. We are a facilitator for relationships with lawmakers at the local, state, federal, and in some cases even international levels. We're a public relations voice, one of several, that helps to represent the expertise and experience of the pet care community on issues of the day. And we are a resource for best practices, things like antimicrobial stewardship, to make sure that you're not using antibiotics inadvertently in a way that could lead to antimicrobial resistance, best practices on products and care standards, and just generally working to make sure that we're all putting our best foot forward when it comes to animal health and well-being, which we know is everyone's priority. But the best way that we can help you is to have you help us make your voice heard. And the best way to do that is to get involved in PIJAC as a member. We work to advance the responsible pet care community. We work to promote the health and well-being of pets, to preserve the right to pet ownership, and to protect the ability of businesses like yours to operate without onerous or unnecessary restrictions, taxes, and other liabilities. We can't do that without your help. And we can't represent your voice without getting to know you. So please take the time to visit us at www.pjac.org. Love to have you join us and contact us to figure out how we can get you involved directly and make sure that your voice is one of the ones that we are representing front and center when we talk to lawmakers and regulators and their staffs across the country to communicate the positive and valuable things that all of us in the pet care community do to protect and advance the health and well-being of those oh so important companion animals that all of us love and care for. Thank you very much for your time today. My name is Mike Bober. I'm the president and CEO of PIJAC, and I'd love to get a chance to talk to you about ways that we can get you involved. Thank you, and have a good day.